Welcome to the What's So Smart podcast, powered by the Huntsville Madison County Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Clark Dunn. Huntsville, Alabama is known as a smart place, but really, what's so smart about it? In this podcast, we will talk to the leaders of Huntsville's economic and cultural development to answer that question. From rockets to genomics, from cyber to music, What's So Smart will explore the visionary and data-driven initiatives that make Huntsville so smart. Stay connected with us on all your social media platforms at A Smart Place. You can watch the full conversations on our YouTube channel at Huntsville, Alabama, USA, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy this episode of the What's So Smart podcast. Hi, everyone. I am Clark with the What's So Smart podcast. Today, I have the opportunity to sit down with PeggyLee Wright of the Alabama School for Cyber Technology and Engineering to learn a little bit more about what makes Huntsville so smart. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it seems like you've had a pretty incredible career. I mean, a variety of different things. You wear a variety of different hats. Talk to me a little bit about your background. Where are you originally from, and kind of where did this story begin?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in what was Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Fayetteville, North Carolina is the city that it's connected to, and was just raised in a family of military. And both brothers went on to the military, and it was the one thing that I said I would never do. And then the first Desert Storm happened while I was in college in New York, and to me that was a calling. It was time for me to serve my country, and so I went in and spent over 10 years flying UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters for the military and doing some counter-drug interdictions for them in South and Central America, and met my husband through the military, which was definitely a godsend. And then when we got out and started a family, it's just been wonderful ever since. So really appreciate military families and what the military does for our nation, and those who support the military.
So did you always have the anticipation to go to school somewhere that you'd like to go off to New York to go to school, or did you look at schools closer to home?
Yeah, so growing up on a military post, you definitely sometimes, at least for me, I wanted to kind of see what else was out there.
Yeah.
And so going to New York was really a last-minute decision. It was between New York and Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Always, my heart's been a Tar Heel, but I wanted to see some other things, and I'm glad I did. It was definitely a much different lifestyle than I had grown up in, but it taught me a lot about other communities, other audiences, what different parts of our nation look like, and what different parts of our nation need. And then that really helped propel me into what I did in the military.
Yeah. So, and you got your bachelor's in communications and a master's in elementary education. How has that kind of played into what you do now in your day-to-day work life?
Yeah, so it's been very interesting. I did not expect, as I said, to go into the military. I really thought that I would do something within journalism or broadcasting. But once I kind of started interning in New York for those positions, it wasn't something that lit my fire. Yeah. I've always been involved with children in some capacity from a very young age, camps and counseling and things like that. So elementary education seemed like a great fit. And I never used it in the military. Let me back that up. Sometimes an elementary school education can prepare you for all the things that you're going to do in life. But it has definitely helped shape me in terms of understanding others, and how they communicate, or how best to get messages across. I also went on and received another graduate degree in applied behavior analysis, only because I really wanted to understand how the human mind worked. It was fascinating to me. And that also definitely helps me now in business, and again, being able to kind of understand why people think the way they do, and how you can deliver a message to ensure that people receive it. Yeah. And so that has definitely helped.
So when did you make the move to Huntsville, and what was your knowledge of Huntsville prior to moving here? And did it meet expectations? Did it exceed expectations?
That's a great question. So we were still, my husband was actually still in the military when we moved to Huntsville. I had gotten out in order for us to raise 4 gorgeous children. So we right now have 4 teenagers in our home. Okay. It's like having your own little terrorist organization when you come home every day, if you know anything about teenagers, but they're wonderful. But when we heard about coming to Huntsville, all of our military friends told us we were going to love Huntsville. You're going to love it. It is the country's best kept secret. We were living in D.C. at the time, and it was hard to fathom that
we're moving to Alabama.
We are moving to Huntsville, Alabama. And when we came here, this was back in 2011, we were here approximately a week before the horrible tornadoes in 2011. Wow. And the first thing I said to my husband was, where the hell did you bring us?
Yeah.
And then after that incident, the very next day on the Arsenal, as well as in the community, we saw how people who never even met were pulling together and helping each other. Yeah. And that was something that we knew was special right off the bat, how people just put everything else aside to help their neighbor. And we wouldn't have seen that in a lot of other places that we've been in our military career. So yes, Huntsville exceeded our expectations to the point that we were supposed to go right back to the Pentagon and continue this military journey. And when it got down to that time, we looked at each other and said, we need to stay. This is perfect for our family. It's a great community, and everybody was right. It's the country's best kept secret.
For sure. And so, I mean, you've been here 13 years. The community is a big element that's kept you here. Is there any other things besides the community itself that's kind of tied you down and says, hey, Huntsville's home now?
Absolutely. So rather than just, raising a family, which has been absolutely amazing in this town, the professional opportunities that come in Huntsville are beyond like no other. Yeah. Not just on the Arsenal, but also supporting the war fighter if you're within Department of Defense, as well as other commercial opportunities. I say all the time that even though we might be the number one city in the nation to live, as we've been dubbed, and we're the largest city in Alabama, we also have the largest DoD-centric research park. We also have this feeling of we're still a small town.
Oh, for sure.
So whether or not I'm walking to go to dinner with a friend or doing a day out with my family or doing professional networking, or it has to do with education, the feel that you have here is that I can look to anybody to my left and right and know that I have support, even if I've never met them until today.
Yeah, and I think that's a unique thing. Like there's pockets of Huntsville and pockets of the surrounding area that you can go to and really feel like you're still where it was when you first moved here.
Absolutely.
And there's places you can go that you just doesn't even look like the same thing.
It's such a true statement.
And there's like, even just on my drives to my office and stuff like that, like the scenery and the landscape changes so quickly. But I still go visit, my parents in South Huntsville, and it's still like where I grew up. It is still the place that is this, like, I know who lives there, I know who lives there, and so you're always one degree of separation from someone you know.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
It's hard to do in a city that's growing as fast as we are.
Yeah, and I credit our leadership in this city for that. The one thing about Huntsville that I think is so much different than any city in the U.S. is that there are 5 enterprises that truly make this city perfect. And that is, one, the Arsenal. Having a military component here, I think, really changes the landscape for us. The second one is our industry, whether it's commercial industry or Department of Defense industry, it's so strong. The third one would be our post-secondary education. Yeah. You look around, you've got Calhoun, Drake, A&M, right down the road you have other universities that are at their peak, and that UAH, Huntsville, I mean, you just can't beat that. Number 4, you're talking about government. Our government here locally is so wonderful, and we have such easy access to them that I have not seen in any other city. If you want to have an audience with the folks who run this city, you can have an audience with the folks who run this city, and it's not just a drill. You're truly listened to. And then finally, I think the 5th enterprise that we have that's so strong is our nonprofit industry. And when you put those 5 very different enterprises together and you start to show people how those 5 enterprises can work together, magic happens.
For sure.
And this is one of those towns, well, I keep saying town because it feels that way, but we are a city that allows you to do that, and people want to play together. Yeah. And so that whole theme of a rising tide lifts all boats, this is definitely the one city that my husband and I have lived with our family, and we've been all over the world, that has that secret sauce. Yeah. They have that perfect mix of everything.
Yeah, and the area that we want to discuss today is the education element of it.
Absolutely.
With the ASCTE, the Cybersecurity and Technology School.
Absolutely.
So with engineering and cyber having long been a part of Huntsville's DNA in the community, has always kind of prioritized that. Obviously, with the Redstone Arsenal, with Research Park, it's an engineering town.
Absolutely.
What's so smart about the school itself, and that it's able to be dedicated to those disciplines?
Well, when you think about cyber technology and engineering, there's not another high school in the country that is actually teaching 9th through 12th graders how to implement cyber resiliency into the engineering life cycle. And you said it yourself. Tommy Battle, our mayor, he has positioned Huntsville to be the cyber capital of the nation.
Yeah.
And we do amazing things here. When you combine that with the fact, as you stated, that we are an engineering town, it only makes sense that we're starting to teach our youth earlier than just in college how they too can have careers within cyber technology and engineering. And by doing that in Huntsville, which I can't see how you couldn't possibly not do it in Huntsville, it really creates a magic. I've heard so many times that Huntsville is considered like the Silicon Valley of the South. And I think that we're on our way to changing that to being Silicon Valley is the Huntsville of the West Coast.
Wow.
Because we are doing amazing things here that the rest of the nation is not doing. And ASCTE, that boarding high school that is impacting so many students around the state, because we take students from around the state, is really helping to promote that picture. And we're really proud of that.
Yeah, and so talk a little bit about how the structure of the school is set up and how Huntsville was chosen. Obviously, there's a lot of red flags that'd be like, yes, Huntsville's a great, or a lot of green flags. A lot of places like, hey, Huntsville's a great spot for this to be. But there's also a lot of places across the country that could have also been a good contender. How did Huntsville get chosen, and how has the school kind of grown within Huntsville?
Well, it has been amazing. This started truly with Cyber Huntsville and some really prominent figures in our community. Ms. Alicia Ryan with Sync, Senator Orr, many other really phenomenal visionaries. Joe Newberry at Redstone Federal Credit Union. I could go on and on. But these folks realized that there was more to cyber than just being able to promote the businesses. That if we truly wanted to be competitive in this state, we needed to start educating these children, these students earlier. And so they started petitioning Governor Ivey in order to say, hey, we need another state magnet. We have 2 state magnets already that are phenomenal, the fine arts and the math and science, but we need one that is geared towards cyber and engineering, because we're in a town and also in a state where that profession is at a shortage. And we're in a nation where that profession is at a shortage. And so we're kind of sharing subject matter experts constantly. And we need not share. We need to be able to be a little stronger than that. So after a few years of petitioning, Governor Ivey thought it was a brilliant idea to put this school on the map. And then that's when Huntsville had to compete, because there's a lot of places in Alabama that this could work. We're a phenomenal state. But because we are so strong in that industry that we talked about earlier, with so many engineers in this town, and having a national impact, if not a world impact, with the companies that we have here, this was just the logical place to have it. And it's really been so beneficial, not just for our students, but for workforce development in Huntsville, as well as for all kinds of other development within our town.
Yeah, and I think, too, just the proximity that Huntsville has to so many other cities across the Southeast.
You got it.
Its proximity to Atlanta, its proximity to Nashville, Birmingham. I mean, like, you have all these places that you can get to with under 3 hours.
Absolutely.
And that's why Huntsville's also become such the city that it is just its proximity to other cities.
Absolutely.
How has the growth for ASCTE kind of occurred over its course of its inception? Because it hasn't been around too long.
It hasn't, and that's what we are really proud of. This school was written into law back in 2018. President Matt Massey was hired in 2019. The summer of 2019, I was hired to run its foundation just a few weeks later. And we were given the task by Senator Orr and Alicia Ryan to build a school, make a school, recruit students to come to a school that's a boarding school in the South, which that is very much a Northeastern thing,
And
not a Southern thing.
You're recruiting from all across the country.
And we are recruiting from mostly around the state,
Okay.
From Alabama, but we are starting to also need to recruit from around the country because we're the only school like it.
Yeah.
No other school in the country or other state in the country has a high school like this. So the growth that has happened in this is only our 4th year of having students. We stood this school up during the pandemic. We were the only public school in the entire nation to open in 2020 on time, in person, with no virtual option.
Wow.
Because we decided that we are getting students who we do not know. They are coming from all over the state. We need to ensure that we have a grasp on how well they learn and how to teach them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of parents in this state took a chance on us, and it has proven to be amazing. We are now sitting on a brand new campus in our 2nd year on this campus. We just did a groundbreaking for an entire student activity center that we're calling the Sentinel Center, because our 334 students not only are gifted in what they do academically, but they also want sports, and they have them, and they want theater, and they want band, and they want all of these other things to make them the well-rounded cyber engineer subject matter experts that we want them to be. And it really helps them just ensure that, and it helps us ensure that we're giving them everything they would have gotten at home and then some.
Yeah, and it's incredible just how many students that they're already at that school and getting ready to, I guess, maybe you already had one graduating class. This might be your first graduating class.
So you are on it. We had one graduating class so far. It was last year. It was our very first cohort of students that we ever received. It was a very small class of only 17 kids. But those kids had an average ASCTE score of 32. They all received full rides and scholarships, and we're really proud of being able to watch them grow and what they're doing at their different universities. This year, we'll have a little over 60 graduating seniors. We already have 4 perfect ACT scores in a class of only over 60, and they're just tearing it up.
Wow.
The other thing I'd like to caveat, however, is ACT scores on everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so we still have students who are getting average scoring, but they're being flown to D.C. to work for the National Homeland Security and get secret security clearances because they want to hire them now. They don't want to wait until they're after college. So these kids truly are showing everyone that no matter where you come from, whether you come from a Bullitt County, whether you come from a little dirt road down the way and you've never owned your own laptop, that we can bring you into our campus, and as we're giving you the tools, we're giving you support systems, these kids really do make a difference, and they are going to change the way this country does education.
And it's crazy, just the first graduating class to your second. I mean, the first graduating class is not, I mean, I graduated with 18 in high school.
Yeah.
So like that's like, and then to go up to 60 is incredible.
Yeah. By next year, we'll be close to 80 and then 100.
Yeah, and I think too, just the hub being in Huntsville too, and the opportunities for those students to have those internships and those co-ops and those opportunities to really get the hands on, because there's only so much you can learn in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And being in a city that gives you the opportunity to step out of the classroom and you're in proximity where you could touch these buildings and these facilities that are doing these researches and doing this technology work that these students are learning in the classroom.
Absolutely, and that really is a credit to this city and what we were speaking about before in terms of you look to your left and your right and everybody wants to help. There has not been one agency, whether it's an agency on the Arsenal, where we all know how difficult it is to even get on the Arsenal, let alone get teenagers to be able to have hands-on experiences, whether it's been the city and Tommy Battle and all of his crew that have really promoted us and supported us, whether it's been CEOs and presidents at these companies, whether it's commercial companies or Department of Defense. They have come in like gangbusters and said, we see where this is going, we want to help. And so every senior that we have, they don't spend their senior year in the classroom. They spend their senior year at a Space and Missile Defense doing an internship, at a Raytheon Technologies doing an internship, at a small business here in the area doing an internship their entire senior year. So by the time they are done with that senior year, they're already getting, hey, we'd like to pay for your college if you'll work for us this summer. Hey, do you think you could work remotely while still going to college? We'll pay for it. They're getting opportunities a lot earlier because we're showing that these kids really can do the job.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to the city and how they've embraced the school. And we're really thankful.
If you look back over your time here in Huntsville, I mean, you've been able to call Huntsville home. Huntsville's grown. You've grown being here in Huntsville. Is there a unique experience that comes to mind of like a Huntsville thing that that is something you always think about, a story or an interaction you had with somebody here in Huntsville?
This is going to take us way back. So Lindsay Ferguson, who now works with the chamber, was one of the first young professionals that I met when I was going to step out on my own and start my company. And she was running a program that we call Leadership Huntsville at the time. And that program and Lindsay being a part of that program and the people that she surrounded that program with allowed me to really meet people in this community that were decision makers. But what it also showed me was the pressure points that we have in Huntsville and where there's a need in Huntsville. And that completely changed how I saw how to move in and step into Huntsville as a professional. And so Lindsay now works for the chamber, and this chamber does the most exceptional things for our town. Mike Ward, Chip Cherry, they were at the helm of trying to get ASCTE, that school, done and trying to get it to come to Huntsville. They played a huge part in that, and they continue to. And how this chamber, Claire Ayala, Lucia Cape, how they have circled around every single person that comes into this town, every single business, whether you are DOD or commercial, whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're a small business of one person, or you are pulling in billions of dollars, they really ensure that we're hitting the mark. And I would say that is the experience that has really cemented my husband, my family, us staying here has been that type of leadership in this town. And no one forgets, and they always circle back. And so that has really made us say, we're not going anywhere. We will be here until, the city kicks us out.
And I think that's just a testament that even though Huntsville's growing so much, that community element is still ingrained in us, and it's what makes us this hidden gem of the South. It's what makes us the city that we are, and it'll make us the city we want to be.
Absolutely.
But I thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. It's been great learning a little bit more about ASCTE, and then anything that you've mentioned in this conversation, we'll have links to that in the episode notes. If anyone wants to find out more information, you can just visit there. But thank you again for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to following the podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the What's So Smart podcast. Stay connected with us on all your social media platforms at A Smart Place. You can watch the full conversations on our YouTube channel at Huntsville, Alabama, USA, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed hearing more about what makes Huntsville so smart.